afternoon. If you want to take yourself off of mute or chat, we're kind of going to have a laid back conversation with Sara here. I think both of the people in here have your book. I recognize the names, so I know they've been busy reading it.
Awesome. Welcome. I'm going to need you guys to all calm down a little bit. It's getting a little too wild in here.
See if everybody can unmute and just chat away. Because I know both of everyone here, I believe, got to see your first presentation and know all about your journey. Got to see all your cool pictures.
Awesome.
Patrick, you got your book, right? Yep.
Have you guys seen monarchs yet at the refuge?
I haven't seen any here yet. I know that somebody had posted somewhere that they were seeing them in Southern Ohio.
Yeah.
Sporadically, but I haven't seen any up here yet. Well, I don't know. Patrick or Jackie, do you have any questions? No, nobody wants to unmute. We are very shy.
Or, well, it keeps saying Patrick's is connecting to audio like it's not working. Blink twice if you need help.
Well, that stinks. I don't have any options to help them out here.
If someone's trying to do stuff in the chat, or you can put in the chat that you're trying to connect.
Yeah.
Julia, can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, you don't really want my video, do you? That would be cruel. I want to say to Sara, there's a comment, and I've got Julia's kids here, so I'm trying to be brief. There's a comment in your book where you say, "Stay strange and keep going." I envy your strange. I think of it as socially diverse or something. I don't know, but it's sort of you're unconventional in a way I wish I could be, but I don't allow myself. And I envy that of you, that you've broken through all those crazy barriers we put before ourselves. Because what you do is you open yourself up culturally, ethnically, universally to nature, and I love it.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn from nature in a lot of ways, and I think when you go into the forest, which is the tree that you stop and look at? And it's not the one growing perfectly straight and tall. It's the one that got knocked over in the snowstorm, and the one that has the mistletoe growing from the branch, and the one with the woodpecker holes and the ants on it. And so
Right.
I think what is important in this world and what is important in this life, and it's we have put ourselves in these boxes out of fear often, and man, if you bust out a little, it just gets easier and easier and easier, and then you meet other people and it makes it easier. It makes it way easier for me to be strange or different or whatever, because all my friends are strange and different.
Yeah.
So we can laugh at each other in a way that makes me at least feel safe, and makes me actually not feel that strange with my friends. Maybe the rest of the world, but with my friends, I feel, not pretty dang normal. I was wait, what are you doing this weekend?
Well,
yeah, thank you for that comment.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and it's enviable.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure in reality there are things about you that are strange and different, and those are the things that your friends and family probably love about you.
Unless you're somebody's mother, and then it's always, oh my God.
Oh, they love it just the same.
think until you're in your 30s, then you appreciate everything
Yeah.
about your parents, right? But no,
Hello,
to
this is Pat.
expand.
Oh,
Oh,
hello.
hi, Pat.
How you
Good to see
doing?
you again.
Good to see you again. Thanks for the sending the book so quickly, and I got your little note that said "Go Bills," so I like that.
Of
I'll
course.
turn on my camera for a second, so
Sure.
you can see
We'd
me.
love to see you.
Hello.
There you
Hi, how
oh,
you
it's
doing?
Bill's
And I love the part you said we're kind of strange. I'm an engineer, so when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a meteorologist. So I read all kinds of meteorology books. So I was a little bit estranged that way, and then I ended up going into a technical role in engineering based on my conversation with my dad. So I get the feeling that what you're talking about. Now
Great.
I'm starting to gravitate towards the. I hated biology when I was in high school, and now here I am. One of my hobbies is related to biology with planting, pollinating gardens and enjoying your book and enjoying the journey because it's kind of new for me.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the world. You said you've been planting milkweed?
Yeah, I planted the different kinds of milkweed in the backyard. I have a pretty large backyard. Unfortunately, it's mostly grass, but I really enjoyed your book and how it really educated me. But what I have in the back, it's partly wetland. It's New York State DEC, so it's an adjacent to the wetland, and so I own part of it. So I've worked with the DEC to allow me to actually use some of it, and now I'm looking at planting. I've already planted some milkweed back there. I'd like to plant some other things, and I'm pretty sure I still have the agreement from the DEC. But I have. I told you the story about the butterflies coming back and forth. That the first year they were going back on my boundary, the property line. It was unbelievable. They just went back and forth. Before that, I never saw any monarch butterflies back there. Now
Wow.
it's awesome to see them come. And today we just had our first Baltimore Oriole come to our grape feeder, so that was
Yay.
nice to see that.
That's awesome. Do you get a lot of frogs too?
Oh yeah, a lot of spring peepers.
Oh, I
Did I
love
say that
spring
right?
peepers.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're great that
Peep,
time of
peep,
year.
peep, peep.
Yes. They do it like 3 or 4 cycles. This year it was really long because it got warm early, and probably in Ohio too,
Mm.
right, Julie? In Ohio, did it get warmer earlier this year, and then it got cool?
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah, our trees all blossomed earlier than they should have, and then we got snow. So
Yep.
that was a fun
Yep.
thing for Ohio.
Yeah, it was very weird. It started early and then it slowed down, and so we had that extended spring peeper, serenaded every night. It almost made you lull you to sleep. That's very nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, they're definitely nice to hear. We
Well, I have a question for you guys actually, because I think when I started writing the book, I didn't really know what the point of it all was. Like, I knew I wanted to say something, but I wasn't sure exactly what that thing was. And usually with a memoir, you give yourself 20 years to reflect, and you look back and you say, oh, meeting that person changed my life because here's the trajectory I went. But I didn't have that time. So I basically wrote about everything. And in the course of doing that, what I realized is that the theme, at least for me, and the theme of my trip was learning not only to look, but to see. And I'm curious if, as people were reading the book, if they were seeing things that they might not have seen otherwise, because I know for me, in the course of writing it, it also taught me to see. And so I would notice things that, because I was writing about them, or because I was wanting to take a picture of them, that I wouldn't have noticed before. And I'm curious if that's happened to anyone else, because for me, that's the beauty of reading not necessarily my book, but all books about nature, is it kind of reframes your lens to see the world.
I thought you brought that out very nicely. I could see the scenery and the hills that you were trying to climb, and I wasn't wanting to do that. So,
But have you gone outside in your own backyard and seen something you maybe hadn't noticed before?
mm,
Or not yet?
not so much. No, not so much.
we get to see it.
I haven't one.
Your eyes. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I was going to say I have in one sense where I think I've mentioned it a little bit, just reflecting. Wow, I'm a person who really loves a manicured lawn. I'm a golfer, so the love, and I haven't golfed in a while, but my love having gone the Masters tournament at Augusta and just the beauty of nature. Now I start to realize, well, maybe, the lawn doesn't need to be as perfect as my brain thinks it needs to be. And there's a whole nother world out there, that we're all connected. And I think that was the biggest learning I had out of your book. That came across.
Well, do you remember there was a part in when I was in Columbia, Missouri, and I talk about going to a golf course, and I couldn't honestly believe that I was like going to a golf course, because I was like, a golf course is exactly what you think of mowed lawns forever.
Right.
And I show up, and all the rough, I think that's how you say it, right? The rough.
Yes, the rough. Right.
The rough
right.
was
taller
all wildflowers. It was so beautiful. And it was like a drab day, but I have some photos of just all this goldenrod, and it was really fun to talk to the manager there, because he was saving money and he was also educating people, but they still had the greens, right? And
Right.
I think it's so important to frame everything in the context of sharing. So
Yes.
of course golfers should be able to golf. Like I'm not saying like, no, we gotta like have a machete and like cut through the prairie every time we go to work, but like we need to share. So if we can, if having a native rough doesn't affect the game too much, you can still have the green. And it's the same with the yards. Like there's nothing wrong with having some green grass in your backyard for the kids and the dog and you. But like let's just learn to share. So let's find those places where we can share. Yeah, it just keeps coming back to sharing. But I'm not much of a golfer. I've never golfed, and maybe I would have my perspective would change if I golfed more. I've putt golfed, and I'm terrible at it. So.
And I think you live your golfing through your bicycling. I mean, I was out on a boat a few times with a friend many years ago, and the same feeling I had being out on that boat in the middle of Niagara River, and the beauty and the relaxation. Yeah, it was the exact same feeling I had standing in the middle of a golf course when you're ready to hit a shot, and then you hit the shot and you see what you've done, and it lands on the ground. And but it's not just a shot. It's if there was no nature, golf would be meaningless. It has to absolutely have the nature, the smell, the beauty. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're getting a lot of exercise. You're walking around and using your body, and that always brings a little bit of joy.
So I think you writing the journey that you were on as maybe perhaps a similar experience of either being out on a boat or being out on a golf course. It's relaxation and a connection.
For sure, just living in the moment. That's what makes you feel like an animal or a person or whatever you want to call yourself. Is like, I mean, I am an animal. We're all animals, but some people are like shocked when you say that. But but like to live in the moment and to not be thinking about tomorrow or yesterday, but to just be concentrating on something, that's so important for our minds and our souls. So it's like, I don't think everyone should go on a bike ride. It's not for everyone, but everyone's has to find something. And it's the same. I don't care if everyone loves monarchs, but everyone should love something in nature. Sure. And by falling in love with something, whether it's a bird or a turtle or a frog, then you put your love there, and that ripples out and helps everyone and every creature on the planet. So yeah, everyone's got to find their thing. And honestly, butterflies aren't my thing. Like frogs are my true love. And I think people are always a little disappointed when I say that. Like in interviews, they'll be like, when was that moment you first fell in love with butterflies? And like, I don't have that moment. Like I've always loved all animals, but I like specifically remember the moment I fell in love with frogs, and it was like taking them home, a little cup full of tadpoles, and putting them in a little terrarium and watching them grow. And like I listened to a podcast about herpetology, which is the study of amphibians and reptiles, and one episode was on the study about people's relationship to nature. And it was like a survey of, do you love frogs, do you like frogs, or do you hate frogs? It was really, really general. And the people that clicked I love frogs or even I like frogs, they were all, the only thing that connected them was that they'd had an experience as a kid with a frog that was positive as a kid. And so I think, wow, like the only reason I love frogs is because of those little frogs that I reared when I was a kid, and like that makes them my teachers. And if it had been butterflies, then it probably would have been butterflies. And in the end, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters to me, but for the rest of the creatures, they're like, just pick something, anything, it doesn't matter. Just love nature in some way or another. I don't know. Do you guys have a childhood story that led you to love nature? Wow, I was shocked.
Mine's a little bit different where I'm trying to raise my children to love nature. So I have one that's in my stories. I got a couple special need children. One had a kidney transplant. He's been through a lot of medical stuff, and the other one was a little bit more on the slower side. But anyway, the first one the second one is very much into nature. So he'll go with me on nature walks. The first one's a 16-year-old, so he's not really into nature too much. He's more into the sports, but through sports can connect you to nature.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's
just
probably
being
my
outside.
connection. Yeah, if that would answer your question, my connection to nature would be through sports. My love of sports in the beginning of when I was a youth, and hopefully it'll work on my second son or my first son.
We had a steer. My brother, we moved to a farm. We rented the farm. My parents are teachers, but we moved out to Indiana, and my brother decided to be a farmer, and they got this steer, and his name was, of course we named it, my little brother and I, this was the oldest that got this steer, and my little brother and I loved that cow. He would come up to you and lick you, and you could scratch behind his ear, like it was just this big dog. And we loved that steer. And one day he went away, as you probably know, right? And also we had a horse. They sent a Palomino horse. My uncle sent a horse to our farm to live with this steer. And Louis ate Ricky Ricardo's tail. It was this beautiful Palomino, but nobody could ride him. So we came to the farm to live. So they're in stalls together, and we have all these barn cats. And I guess the whole thing is why I really love nature, because we were out and we were running wild, my little brother and I. As far as that goes, is what you can do in a farm in Indiana, running wild. But anyway, once the steer left, we were very sad, and we would walk down the road to get milk and everything. It was all very nice, and we didn't know until I was in my 20s that where the steer actually went, because they say they traded it for other meat.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Oh.
I'm a
told
pseudo
you.
vegetarian now, but but anyway, that was I guess it was the whole farm that gave me the love of nature, because it was so, we were so free as kids. I don't know that my daughter got to have that kind of experience in Toledo that I did, even though it was in the suburbs. We had an African claw frog that she raised from a tadpole, and we got the painted lady butterflies that you could raise and set free. So trying to pass it on.
Have you ever considered that steer and that horse to be your teachers?
Always, yes.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yes, they lived in harmony. It was, and you could look in their eyes and they would talk to you as a kid. They would talk to me. I don't know if they would as an adult, but as a kid, they would talk to me. So
I'm actually, my next trip, well, I have 2 trips I really want to do next, and one is a horseback riding trip. And I know nothing about riding horses, but with COVID, there's a woman that lives nearby, and she does horse therapy, which is basically where horses are herd animals. And I'm sorry if I'm explaining this and you know it completely.
It's okay.
Sorry, but for everyone else, and maybe everyone knows, and you can just tell me to shut up. But horses are herd animals. So if you enter a herd of horses and your heart rate's elevated, their heart rates elevate, and they show you how you feel, right? So this horse therapy, you'll be in a round pen with a horse, and the woman will be asking you questions, and it's very hippie, but I did it once, and I was like, I really just want to learn about horsemanship. But anyway, the horses are a mirror to you. So if you're anxious, if you're scared, the horses will show you that. And so the woman's name is Gita. Gita can tell you or show you with the help of her horses what you're holding inside you. And so I did that once, and I was like, I'm really more interested in just like learning how to like ride a horse. So she and I have been working once a week for a while and doing horse communication, and it's wild. Like one of the things horses do, and you might probably know this, is when they agree with something, like even in a good energy or anything, they like lick their lips, like, yeah. And it's crazy. Like we'll be talking about nothing, Gita and I, and then like we'll be like, oh yeah, like Zip, he's really been enjoying, the pasture, like, because the grass is really high right now, and he just starts licking his lips, and you're like, I don't want to believe this. It's so crazy. But I'm kind of sold. Like, and I'm realizing, like, I say this with all the love in the world, monarch people are so intense and so full of passion. And I'm like seeing so are the horse people. and so I'm really excited about this. And I still have like so much training to do, but I love the idea of that connection. And I think every human needs to connect. Like we have evolved to connect with animals besides humans. And we're just like, I think a lot of us are desperate to find that connection. And you found it with horses and steers, and I found it with frogs, but I hope everyone can find that connection. That was like a way long tangent, but I don't know. Are you guys horseback riders? Are you a horseback rider, Jennifer?
No, I
No?
ride when we go on vacation. I'll ride. We went on a couple of trips we've ridden, but they wouldn't let me ride the horse because he would buck everybody off and scrape.
Oh no.
Yeah, he was not, I don't think he was raised in a loving environment. That's why they sent him from the stables to us. And I think he liked it better and didn't want to deal with anybody besides the cow. So I never rode the Palomino. He was a beautiful horse though.
I've been reading a lot of books by this guy named Mark Rashid, and he's a horse trainer, and just he writes these beautiful books that impart a lot of wisdom based on his experience with horses. So lessons about patience, lessons of love and noticing and asking, and since people know I'm into horses right now, they've been giving me all these books, and like the first one I was like, oh boy, a horse book, but I loved it, and it was way better than I thought. It was way deeper than I thought, and so Mark Rashid is really awesome.
Can you spell it?
It's
RASHEED?
RASHID.
Thank you.
But yeah, he has a lot. I've read one is No Horse is a Bad Color, and talking about how people will often go and buy a horse because it's beautiful. But like his experience has been the ugliest horses, quote unquote ugliest horses, have been the best horses he's ever had.
Oh,
and it goes back, to nature and being strange again, right? Like we discredit people because they aren't quote normal. We discredit so many things because they're different, and those differences are where our powers lie often. But
That's a really good take on it, because
so true.
Being a mom with little kiddos that are into all different things, it's so important for them to feel okay that they're not in that group or that clique that they think they need to be in, that they can just do their own thing. They can have other interests and be happy that way, just find peace with that and not have to conform,
There's like this amazing quote I'll totally butcher that's like, everyone's a genius, but if you make a fish learn to fly, it'll spend its whole life thinking it's dumb or something like that. Do you guys know that quote? But
I haven't heard that one.
But anyway.
Makes sense.
It does.
Sarah, you said you have 2 trips planned. One's the horseback. What's your other one?
So I love frogs. I actually just went to the bookstore the other day, and I saw this book on the shelf, and it was called The Book of Frogs, and it has a little 1-page profile on 600 species of frogs. And I'm moving right now, and it weighed 5 pounds. I'm like, I cannot buy this book. I own a motorcycle. I do not own a car. I've got to move 4 hours away and get all my stuff on a motorcycle. Don't buy this book. But so I'm like, oh, what if I'll buy it I'll probably buy it used and then have it shipped to my new house. And I'm going to flip through the pages and I'm going to circle all the ones I want to see because I really, really want to go. I'm calling it right now an amphibious adventure. So amphibious means half land, half water, just like an amphibian lives half their life on land and half on water, typically, not actually. But the land and water are really integral to amphibians. And so I'm thinking, what if I would really love to write another book. And so I'm kind of seeing this through the lens of a book, is like each place I go is a chapter with a kind of its own adventure. So maybe it's walking, maybe it's canoeing, maybe it's rafting, maybe it's bicycling to a different place to discover a specific amphibian that I really dive deep into. Dive in, not into them, but into the species and the information. And then so the whole book would connect a lot of different animals, and I would love to go around the world. I would love to sail. It's like a little awkward because I think there's only one species of brackish amphibian. They don't do well. So then I'm like, well, I could kind of steer it to herpetology in general. So we call them herps, which is amphibians and reptiles. Not a very pretty sounding adventure, my herping trip, but I could follow sea turtles, or I don't exactly know the details, but it's like in my mind simmering just like the monarch trip was. And yeah, I think it would open a lot of doors. And sometimes you really, for me, I need to focus a lot on an adventure, like, because there's so much you can do. But if you have like, I want to go to Australia and try and find, it's presumed extinct, but I want to go to the range of this. There's like these gastro something frogs. They might be called gastro frogs, where the females will eat their fertilized eggs, and then the tadpoles will metamorphose in their stomachs. So they won't eat during this time. They'll stop secreting stomach acids, and then when the toadlets are ready, they like barf them up. And how amazing is that? And they're presumed extinct. No one's seen one in I don't know how many years. But I could go and I could like study that area. And in doing so, you're going to go to places that you probably wouldn't have been if you had just been going to see Australia. And it kind of like having a really specific goal allows me to make plans that are maybe a little less ordinary, because it's like, well, it's going to take me 5 days to get to the spot, and it might not feel worth it, but in that 5 days, that's where the adventure will unfold. So my grandma was from Australia, and so I've always wanted to go there. Like my favorite stuffed animal for my whole life was a koala bear named Koali. And so Australia's been on my list forever. I don't know have any of you guys been to Australia?
It's on my bucket list. I want to go. I would love to go to Australia. Before the barrier reef is gone, it would be nice, but we'll see.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was just talking to someone the other day about these trips, and the woman goes, you should do the frog trip first before the horse trip, because frogs are probably going to be extinct soon. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's so depressing. She was like being a little dramatic. I think that there'll be frogs for the rest of my life, but not nearly as many. I think there's like 7,000 species of frogs.
Okay.
But so anyway, that my amphibious trip, I would love to do. And
that sounds like that's more planning already than what you normally do, according to your book.
Yeah, it would be a little more planning. I think it would still be because there'd be a lot of logistics, it would be like having a central place in each kind of country for me to leave stuff so I could do little mini trips.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I've met lots of people that just show up at like ports and are just like hang out for a month waiting to find a sailboat. That feels, okay. I'm a little bit more of an introvert. Like, I don't want to talk to strangers all day asking for help. Like, that sounds awful to me. But, and this is like maybe a little selfish even, but with having a project, I think makes it easier for me to ask. So same with the monarchs. Like, I could send an email, because it wasn't really, it was for me, but it was also for the monarchs to raise awareness. Like this, like asking for opportunity wasn't just so that I could have a comfortable bed. It was so that I could get access to a network of people that could help me get out the word with the media and with schools and with nature centers. And in doing so, I was helping the monarch. And I just like, I can't emphasize enough how amazing and how much I love the fact that the more I seem to help the monarch, the more the monarch helps me. Like Jane Goodall wrote a blurb for my book. Like that's crazy, right? And so that feels to me like a gift from the monarch. The monarch's being like, I know it's hard, good job, hang in there. Here's a blurb from like one of the most amazing women ever. And you're like, okay, I can do this. And I think so I'm kind of going all over the place, but I think it's sort of the same with the frog. Like if I give my time and my energy and my passion to the frogs, then they will return it in all these ways, including helping me find a boat across the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. I gotta get a map. But yeah, so I think what will happen is I'll need to eventually just pick a date and then pick a few countries, and I want to buy that frog book because I think, what, I don't know, I should just pick a few frogs, and then they'll do the hard work for me, and I can contact folks that are studying them or protecting them, and find these ways to kind of get a little bit more behind the scenes, and then the rest will unfold. And I'm sure things will change, but yeah. So
that sounds like you. That sounds like you.
But I'm really
excited for that.
Yeah. Oh, and Rebecca says horse therapy is magical. Yes, I agree. Like I'm a little hesitant to talk about it as magical because I think a lot of times people, like even myself, when people talk a little too, like I'm gonna say foo-foo, that like I get a little turned off. So I'm afraid that I'll scare people. But I've totally been sold on it. It's really amazing. Back to that. But
So I think it's pretty neat that through your journey, you've connected people from California, Ohio, and New York, and we're all sharing some interest here. And I know everyone's going to go out and spread the word about it. And it just takes a couple people and get the ball rolling about monarchs and conservation and not mowing your lawn and being connected with nature. So
yeah,
spreading little by little, which is pretty neat.
I love it too. And I think there is a like tiny chance that two of us have seen the same monarch even, or that like a monarch that passed through or was born on like one of our lawns visited us. And like, I think it's so magical and it's so beautiful, and it's such a great reminder that like we're not in this together, because it can be lonely. Like you're in your own little backyard and you see one monarch and you think, oh my gosh, like this is not a solution. This is a fool's game. And then you reflect and you look around and you listen to all the other people that are doing their part, and it really lifts me up. And I sometimes thought that what I was doing was often because I was visiting so many people that were so passionate about the monarch, because I was reminding them that they were not alone by connecting all these different people together, and just kind of giving them that pat on the back and being like, good job, keep going, like you're not alone, you're part of a team, and this whole team is like just adopting me and taking care of me and lifting me up, and we're all part of it. It's really beautiful.
That's awesome. That's awesome words.
Thank you.
Inspiring.
Nice. Or I guess that I have another question would be, are you guys reading any other books right now?
Book I'm reading is about retirement planning.
Oh,
It's a little bit, so
poetic.
I jump between your book I finished, and I enjoyed it so much, and now I'm just reflecting. I'm reading up on retirement, but anyway, just to prepare myself for 8 to 10 years to come. But I'm looking for that next book, but I still also, want to enjoy this conversation here. Just reflecting back on your book, there's just so much to talk about. Your connection to the people, the connection back to the monarch, the extremes that you saw. I just remember some crazy guys that you saw that just a crazy story that sticks in my head of that the one guy that wanted to take you to a pond to drink the water and you guys started arguing. It was just a small snippet. It was like, what the heck? And then the other extreme that you've already told me about is your experience in Buffalo is just amazing with the one lady named Heather, I think it was.
Yep.
So not to change the subject or anything, but those extremes is just amazing, but it is motivation for me. I was just talking to my wife about it. It's like my one son with all the situations he's had, so many surgeries, everything. There's a book, there's a journey book that we could write on him. And so, maybe someday I can talk to you more about it. How do you get started and all that? Not necessarily take over this meeting today to talk about that, but at another time. But it was very motivating reading your book and then thinking, wow, this journey that you went from, Mexico to Canada and back is almost like each person has their own journey that needs to be told. And one of them is my son, and just so motivated that maybe in retirement days is to write a book like you have. There was just a crazy story, if you don't mind me sharing.
Please.
Again, I don't want to change the subject of the meeting, but when my son was born, he had issues with cleft lip palate, and we had to take him to New York City from Buffalo to New York City. So we had to fly him there, and he had to go weekly for 25 weeks. So the first one, I told my wife, I'll be able to do it. I'll take him by myself. So I took him by myself, and it was crazy. It was hectic doing that, but I never forget going in JFK Airport and take him into the men's room. My first time, I'm going to change my son's diaper in the men's room, and there was no diaper changing station in the men's room. So I felt this unbelievable feeling of like discriminated against in a very strange way. So I walked out, and there was an elderly lady there, and she saw my frustration, and she walked me into the ladies' room, and there was this beautiful diaper changing station that I could change his diaper.
Oh, good for her.
And I was able to successfully do that, and then get on to my trip to the doctor. But anyway, that does, like, something like that would fit really well into a book that's very similar, kind of in a way parallel to your book, a journey with lots of little stories with one major theme. And when I read your book, it just made me think a lot like that.
Yeah, if you think about, like, every person has a story,
right?
And then you extend that, like, this is a story too of the monarch, but every creature has a story. Like, tussock moths are as equally as amazing as monarchs, and my advice to you would be just to start writing. And what happened for me is I started without much of a plan, and I just kept writing and writing and writing, and then so this book, the book world talks about book length and word count. So my book is about 80,000 words. My first draft was, I think, 115,000 words. And by the time I had written 115,000 words, I was a much better writer. So then I took a deep breath, I took a little break, and then I started at the beginning. And I used those skills that I had acquired through the art of practicing to re-edit. And as I went back through, by the time I had edited 115,000 words, I was a better writer. And, like, you can't do that forever, but I had to do it way more than a professional author. A professional author will maybe do a couple rounds, like, and I think about people that did this on typewriters or on, by hand, and I'm just like, no, like, the computer has become a gift for people that aren't actually writers to become writers. But by practicing, man, it just got better and better and better.
So how long did it take you?
Yeah. My trip was in 2017. I finished in the end of November, and I pretty much started writing right after that. I probably took a month off, so probably right at the beginning of 2018. And then because of my lifestyle, I would, like, work a seasonal job for 3 months where I would be, like, pretty much like, I'd write maybe once or twice, or not even that, once a week, I'd say. So it was a lot more sporadic because I was just consumed by my work. And then I'd have 3 months off to do nothing, and I'd like go to a friend's cabin and work a lot more diligently. So it was off and on for probably a year and a half. And then the advice that I was given that was true for me was, and very helpful for me, was just start trying to get things published. Small snippets of, make excerpts of your book and get them in whatever you can. And that's how you're gonna get the word out that you're writing a book. And so for me, I got an article in Orion magazine, which is a really amazing literary magazine about primarily nature writing. And with that, I got 6 publishers asking to see what I'd written, which is like pretty surreal. And 2 of them offered me contracts, and 2 said, no, it's not for us. And those two are more prestigious. They were a little bit more nature writing. I would have probably said yes to them if they'd said yes, but they didn't, which is fine. And then 2, I just said, no, I don't think it'll fit. It wasn't the right fit. My book didn't fit with the rest of their books as well. And then I did reach out, like another piece of advice always is like get an agent. And I reached out to a few agents, and I didn't hear from them. And I just said, you know what, this is the first book. It doesn't have to be an amazing, it doesn't have to be the best thing I've ever done. So let's just go with let's go where the energy is. Let's take advantage of this and make it happen. And so like I started the book not expecting it to be a book, just knowing that I needed to write a book to be a writer. And I managed to actually pull it off. So yeah, my advice would be just to start writing and keep writing. Is anyone else a writer in the group here?
Nope.
Nope. Not yet. I wasn't a writer either. I mean, I loved writing blogs, and I would get good feedback from my blogs, but yeah. I've always wanted to be a songwriter, but I cannot sing. And I've always loved lyric, and I would like try and write lyric. When I hiked the Continental Divide Trail, I do not tell this to most people, I would just sing random songs all day long, and they were all terrible. Like, you would have to pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars to say these lyrics out loud to people, but I would sing them all day. And then I realized I can't do that. It's not in me. So I said I like this channel to writing about writing, just normal sentences, not songs. It's really fun, and I feel really good to be learning the skill because I like it a lot.
Did you have to get much help from editors?
Right. So I wrote it myself, and then I edited it myself once, and then I started looking around for a copy editor to help me because I was like, it's not ready to be sent to publishers. Like, if I'm gonna have a chance, I need to invest in an editor. And I asked around, and I found a really amazing woman who would have been great. But right at that time, that was when publishers started reaching out to me, and I said, oh well, what do you think? I asked them, it was like, should I wait to send you my they call it a manuscript. I did not call it a manuscript until all this happened, but they said don't pay them. Like, we'll be able to see its potential. Like, don't. And so I waited. I sent them what I had, and then once I had signed a contract with a publisher, then the woman it's called the acquisition editor is the woman that worked with me to get the contract and all of that. She had these big picture edits, so she deleted quite a bit of things that didn't seem relevant or necessary. She circled things like big chunks, like rework this entire story and moved a few things around. And then from there, I was assigned a copy editor, and my copy editor was just so awesome. I really loved her a lot. I love her. We're friends for life. I've never met her, but she was so amazing and so helpful, and she worked with me on all the small stuff, and we went through it together. probably about 2 times. So I've probably read the book 9 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and the last edit was like, it was printed and it was like how it was like laid out, how it was going to be, and it was like, just catch the smallest things, you know. You're not changing 2 words in the same next to each other. This is changing 1 words. And she said, I know you don't want to read this book ever again, but you got to read it 1 more time. But yeah, for me, it read pretty fast. So by the end, I could read it in a week, you know, doing small stuff. But yeah, it's been a process, and I've learned so much, and that's really what it's about, right? Is like, and the reason I have my website is called Beyond a Book is because you could read a lot of books on how to write a book, or you could read a lot of books on butterflies or on riding a bicycle, but until you like get out there and do it, it's all theory, and you're going to learn a lot more. So it really was, if I write this first book, I'm going to learn a lot, and I've learned a lot, and I'm going to do things different on the next round, but that's, you know, you have to give yourself that space to make mistakes so that you can get better.
That's interesting. I wonder if you ever get, I love to read. I am a lifelong reader. But whenever I try to start to journal or do something like that, I find myself looking for the right word that I want. And it's not, if it doesn't come, then I'm just paralyzed and I just put it away and move on. It's just, do the words just flow for you?
That's a good question.
Sometimes they do, but mostly they don't. And for me, what I try and do is write everything down, and then you go back through, you know, when you're fresh the next day, and you find those bits that you really like, and you delete all the bits you don't. And in fact, one of the things I would do is, when it was time to delete something, I wouldn't actually delete it because it was scary to delete. I had this whole other separate Word document I called dregs, and I would just I would cut everything from the original and I'd put it in the dregs, and I've never gone back, but it's there. So it was like, give yourself permission to delete this, but don't worry, it's there if you change your mind. But by writing a lot, I just would write a lot, and then some of it would be decent.
Okay.
Julie, you asked.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah, are you writing little notes on paper and notebooks, or are you doing this on a computer? What was your mode for tracking all your ideas?
On my trip, I wrote in a journal every night, and sometimes it was like I was exhausted and my back hurt, and I was like, I do not want to write. But I would just write like words, you know, like bat, because I saw a bat that day, and that would be enough to remind me of those little details, because it's in the details where the story lies. And sometimes I read a book about a man who walked for like 30 years and he didn't talk. I forget the name of the book, but and he would write a haiku every day, and I read this book like 10 years ago, but it inspired me, and I've written haikus not every day, but most days for years now. And so sometimes a haiku was all I could manage on a really long day, but that was enough. And what I noticed is if I didn't write for one day, then I wouldn't write the next day, and then I wouldn't write. And I'm actually doing that right now with my life. It's like I haven't written in a week, and it's so much harder to start. So if I could even just write a haiku that night, that was enough to kind of keep me going. And then for the actual writing, this is a theory that is mine alone, and I don't know if it's based on anything real, but I'm such a better writer when I use a computer. And my theory, and it might be totally wrong, is that when I'm writing on paper, I'm only using half my brain, right? Because I'm only using one hand. But when I'm typing, I'm using both hands. And I find myself to be much more creative. And it could be totally just like mental and not real at all. But I'm much better writer on a computer, I think.
I like that. That's a good hypothesis.
I don't know. Don't quote me on it.
Yeah.
That's
Do you guys
great
have-
advice with writing a note every day.
Yeah. And it's harder to do when you're not traveling. Like, I have much more of a routine when I'm traveling, even though every day is way different, right? But it's like, okay, every day you got to get up and you've got to find food and water, and then you've got to get some miles, which means you need to ask directions. And then at the end of the day, you have to find a camp spot, and you have to set up your tent, and you have to brush your teeth, and you have to have your dinner. Not quite in that order, but then it's time for bed, and there's no electricity, there's no distraction. So then you write, and you're super tired, so you don't stay up super late doing dumb things. It's a lot easier for me to be more, what's the word for when you're like good at sticking to something? Not dedicated, but focused. Yeah, maybe that's,
Regimented.
yeah, all of the above. I need to type it out so I can think of the word. But yeah, so like I've not written as much during this last year, which I think is actually a real shame, because this year has been such a weird adventure, and I think I'm going to be disappointed in myself later that I haven't written as much about it. But you can only do so much.
Right. Can't beat yourself up about that. That's for sure. Just
Yeah.
this year, you just let it all be.
Yeah.
Just,
Yes.
Yep.
Just take it in stride, and we're reading your book, so it's kind of like you're writing again.
yes.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, the
I
book was
am
awesome.
trying to write about different things. Yeah. Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah,
It's pretty surreal.
Yeah, I just enjoyed it so much. I read it, I think, in, I don't know, 4 days, and I never read anything in 4 days. I'm a slow reader. I just thought it was cool. Having met you already, and then reading it, and then enjoying, looking forward to meeting you again and talking through it, with hearing input from other folks, is kind of cool. I've never done that before. Never met an
Me
author
neither.
I could talk to.
Yeah. Well, if you have more questions for me, I'm
Yeah,
here.
I just thought the extremes were, the monarch. We talked about that in the past. It's just awesome, So the hero of the story is monarch. You're a hero. All the other people that helped you are heroes, right? But then interdispersed was just like that comical story that you're crossing the border, you're in Mexico, and somebody comes along and says there's 15 bandits waiting for you, and they're going to get you at the end of the bridge, and then you see another truck come by or something. Are you speaking Spanish to them, asking if there's anybody over there? And they're like, no, nobody's over there. Well, if you see them, tell them where I'm at or something. You had that little joke. And then you said, I'm never telling my parents this happened. And it's like, it just brings me back in my childhood when I would joke with my brothers, we're never going to tell mom and dad. And then, mom and dad always finds out.
Yep.
I just
My
thought that was
dad
so
read
cool.
the
I
book.
love that story. Those interdispersed of that, the whole thing, those little things are just like so entertaining.
Yeah, and that was such a weird thing. And I was actually asked about that the other day, and I still can't tell you what that guy's motive was. I'm guessing, like, all throughout the United States, people, and in Canada, people would say, "Oh, you're gonna die," and I could often tell it was a reflection that they watch the nightly news, and I listen to the news, which I think has actually benefits me a lot, because I think it's a lot harder to be scared. It's a lot harder to sensationalize media when you only are seeing it and you don't see the people's faces, so you're just hearing what they have to say. I think that is really valuable, and I think that we should all consume our media without our eyes often. But then I go home and visit my parents, and they watch the 10 o'clock news every night. It's terrifying. It's so terrifying. Like, and I actually am like, if I'm going to go outside in the world, I cannot watch the 10 o'clock news. And like, they need it to be terrifying. They need it to be sensational. And so some of my advice for people that want to travel is just don't watch the 10 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news, whatever it is. Don't watch the nightly news, because they're like, often they're like pulling video because they have to have something to show you that actually isn't even from that night's event. It's just like they need drama, and they're not a drama TV show, but they have to sell the news in that way. And so don't watch it. It's so terrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that man in I was just gonna say, I think that man in Mexico watched the news, and so he was terrified for me, and everything was out of context. And yeah, there were no men waiting for me, luckily. But boy, I biked across bridges like you wouldn't believe for about 10 miles.
Yeah, I mean, my first impression would have been the same as your parents, is to kind of like look at it like, if if you were my daughter, I mean, how would I be able to like know that my daughter's traveling by herself? I mean, if you're traveling with a group of people, then it's like, okay, that's still I got to be worried a little bit. But by yourself, but then again, you open, and one of the things in your book, you open our eyes. Even just having a conversation with my wife about this, like, wow, she did it all herself. That's crazy. That's dangerous. Well, I mean, yeah, it is, but is it really? If you're using your intuition and you have the experience you have with bikes, so it's not like you didn't know what you're doing. You did know what you were doing, but there's a risk, but you've managed the risk by using your intuition and at least knowing where you were going. But most of us who don't do those kind of things think of the extreme, and then we often think about, okay, what do your parents think, right? I think that you had mentioned that in the book, I believe, or maybe it was somewhere else you
Oh
mentioned
yeah.
it. But most people,
Yeah, and it's all relative, right? Like it's also dangerous to eat a hamburger every day. But
yes,
like that's socially acceptable. And it's
yes,
also
I like that.
dangerous to text while driving, but
Mm,
like everyone does that. And
mm,
that's so dangerous. And so it's easier, and it's for me, it's the same, right? It's easier not to be scared of something that you've survived, even if
mm,
you're, please don't text and drive. It's so bad. But like you eat a hamburger every day for a week and you're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm going to keep doing it. You text once and you're like, oh, it's fine. Please don't do those things. But for me, it's like, oh, I biked across Mexico. Oh, I was fine. And so it makes it easier and easier. And I think it's having a little bit of perspective, but also like I do have these conscious moments where I'm like, okay, I'm a little scared, but like that's a lot of that's just like been internalized, and like I can be rational in this moment and I'm gonna get through it. It's just like when sometimes I'll be camping at night and I'll like get up and I'll be like, oh, the woods are scary. And like I'm like, okay, I know they're not scary. Like it's the exact same woods. I was already here, and I'm just gonna go in my tent and kind of forget about it and I'll be fine. And that's what I do.
yeah, there was that one story where you had that something screeching at night. You had to call your friend to find out what it
Yeah.
was. I forget what
It
that
was
was.
a barred owl. It was a
That's
juvenile
it.
barred owl. And I
Yeah.
wasn't like, that was a different sort of fear. Like, I'm more scared when I hear footsteps. Like, I'm more scared
Mm,
of people than I am animals.
yeah,
And
sure.
one of the things, people are always scared for me because I'm camping in just random places. But like, I am like honestly more scared in a campground because that's where the people are. And people are
Mm,
predictably scary. Whereas in the woods, if I'm alone and no one knows I'm here, oh boy, I mean, I feel as safe as I can be.
mm.
But yeah, the barred owl is like, I'm not like scared for my life, but I'm like, what is that?
I think I made the assumption that because you had traveled so many times before, you're cross continent bicycling and everything, that you had met people and learned that people, everyday people, aren't the people you hear about on the news, the awful rapists and killers and everything, but real people are kind and open. And you mentioned how your first bicycle trip in high school or something, you found some people who took you all into their home, but you couldn't flush the toilet. And I thought from early on, you probably have had some very positive experiences that have reinforced your trust in human nature.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
I yeah, and I can't help but think that may have built on your self-reliance too. Don't believe the horrible things you read. Believe about what you have experienced, and go with it. And I envied you that. I thought there's a lot of good experiences from taking risks, and you have that, and you keep building on it.
Right. And it's easy, like people think I'm so brave, but is it really brave if I have all this background experience that tells me I'll be fine? Like,
Right.
and in that respect, I think that I was brave in high school to go on that trip, and I was brave in high school to go to those people's house. But after that, now I know, so is it still brave? And I would argue that it's not. It's just seeing the world, seeing a different truth in the world. And if that first experience had been terrifying, then maybe it would have been brave to keep going, but it wasn't terrifying. And I think I think that the only, like, I have to trust people, and you're very vulnerable on a bike, which opens people up to trusting you. So if I had rolled up in a big truck with plenty of places to put a lot of valuables, then people and get away quickly, then people probably wouldn't have invited me in quite as frequently. But because I'm vulnerable, then other people trust me, and then that trust can be exchanged.
Yeah, and that impressed me too. How people opened up their doors to you. You know, you just step by to get a cold drink or something, and the next thing you know, you're getting tacos and a bed for the night, and it's wow.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could be that trusting. Or even if I want to take a dirty, smelly girl into my house. And then I thought, I've got to rethink my life and be a little more open to these experiences.
Well, it's the exact same thing, right? Like, I feel like sometimes a big responsibility, like if I see a person, I know that I can give them either the trust in strangers by inviting them in, and I can like start them on this path to having these great experiences. And I guarantee that if I bring a stranger in, they're going to remember my town with nothing but delight and joy. And then the same so I have a responsibility to them to like be like, I know I'm safe, so I'm going to give them that experience. But then at the same time, I know as a traveler that if this is the first time someone's inviting someone into their house like this, if I'm not wonderful, quote unquote, like not perfect, but like if I'm not trustworthy, then they'll never do this again. And so there is this responsibility that we have to each other. And yeah, I wonder if people, I'm sure that after I've stayed with people, that they might be more likely to take in another person. And then like there's this amazing website called Warm Showers, which it's kind of like not Craigslist, couch surfing, if you've heard of that, but it's just for bicycle tourists. So anyone can register, and you put you don't put your exact information if you don't want, but you say, hey, I'm in Toledo and I have a spare bed, or you can camp in my yard, or I'll cook you dinner, or I only want 2 people, or hey, if there's 6 of you, come on. And people can contact you and come to your house. And I stayed with someone, not on this trip, but on a different trip in San Diego, California. And he had this terrible experience with another cycle tourist where they had just been really rude, and they were like not grateful, and they were annoyed that there wasn't a shower. And he's like, well, and they just were like not good hosts, or not good guests.
Yes.
And so he was like, I called him and he was really hesitant to say yes. And so I realized that like when I stay with someone, if I'm not really grateful and really happy to be there, and if I'm a bad guest, then they'll never do this again.
Right. Well, anyway, your book also opened me up to that, to try and be more open to other people in circumstances.
Yeah,
Not
well,
just
I
butterflies,
appreciate
but
that.
everything.
Yeah, there's so many worlds out there, and I think the more people that know about them, the more other, it might not be a bike tour, but it's going to be something else that it is an opportunity made because now that they know it's an option.
I thought the artwork that you left for the people, your host, was just such a nice touch, and it's beautiful. You're very talented on so many levels, apparently. I was just blown away. I was blown away by that.
Thank you. Yeah, the art was like good for me at night in my tent to kind of just like be somewhere else, listen to a podcast and paint. And yeah, it's just like the book. Like the first painting was way worse than the third one, which was way worse than the 50th one. And I made a lot of them. And in fact, for this book, I really wanted chapter art. And the publisher said, no, people need to take you seriously. Your art's too whimsical. And they said, but it would be a great book for kids, or great art for a kid's book. And I said, fine. If I have to write another book to get this art in it, I will. So I'm actually working on a kid's book, not actually for the art. I started it, and it's like a chapter book, like for 10-year-olds. But I started this book for kids, and then realized that it was like I had things to say that would be boring for kids, but they were necessary for me. But now I've gone back, and I'm trying to work out the book for kids, and I'm really excited about it. And I think kids need to hear the story. And yeah, so hopefully it'll have some art in it too.
Oh, I could not agree.
Don't underestimate kids and what they would find boring. Some
I know.
random boring details are really interesting to them.
It was more, I'm speaking about my anger.
All right.
I don't think kids need to absorb my anger.
No.
and I hope that the book is a balance of anger and hope, but the anger was truly there, and I needed, for my own sake, to write about it, and to really, like, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why I was angry, and the book helped me articulate it and then kind of get rid of it in a way. And so my book for kids will have a lot less anger in it, I think.
Good.
But yeah, I know some kids that have read it. And yeah.
I think a little anger is good because you're teaching kids that they can be okay with anger and what to do with it. So don't take all the anger out.
Yeah, not all,
but I actually.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I actually read that the only way I can get time to read a book is when I'm reading to my kids. So I read it with them, and they would ask me, "Oh, butterfly book." I'm like, okay. And their first thoughts were, so she died, right? And I'm like, no, like she's alive, she's okay. But they have enjoyed it so much, and you've definitely broken a lot of barriers for not just my daughter, but all three of my kids, that they can do anything if they.
How old is your daughter?
To it, so 6.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. We so appreciate you took an hour out of your Sunday afternoon to chat with us. And I think it's just so neat that we all could connect on this. So thank you again, Sarah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jennifer, Patrick.
Thank you, Julia.
I can't wait to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cannot wait to
Enjoyed
get your
this.
next books. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And yeah, if you have any other questions or whatnot, get in touch. I'm not anyone fancy, so I'm just replying to all my emails.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much. We look
day.
forward to seeing your next book, Sarah.
All right. Thanks. It's a deal.
Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.